Hi, this is John Macdonald from ProScot. Welcome back. First thing you might notice is I've managed to get a haircut at long last. Okay, in the last video, I was looking back at the last video, and this is now element C, part 3. This is the final video that we're going to do in element C. So I was looking back at part 2, and just something that I don't feel that I stressed enough when I was talking about areas of weakness and faults when it came to the slow speed riding. Although I did mention it in introductions and I did mention it in the demonstrations, I perhaps didn't mention it enough when I was simulating typical faults, and that is speed issues. We often see people trying to go too slow during the slow speed riding. Remember what we said, when you're fully upright, you're looking at about 3 miles per hour as the minimum sort of speed before you start to wobble. But when you start to turn, then because of the gravity starting to affect the bike as you begin to lean the motorcycle, it aids your balance if you can maintain a higher speed than that. And typically we look for speeds somewhere, and I mentioned this as well in the video, somewhere around about 6 miles per hour. We see some people doing as much as 7 and 8 miles per hour and they're still in full control during figure 8s and U-turns, but 6 miles per hour seems to be a gauge. So it's just to give you an idea that we're looking at about 4 miles per hour when fully upright, between 3 and 4 when fully upright because the gravity's pulling straight down. But when you're actually turning like figure 8s and U-turns and doing your slalom, things like that, that little bit extra speed really helps your balance enormously, that extra couple of miles per hour on there. So taking up to about 6 miles per hour on average, which is like a jogging pace basically. So you're talking walking pace to brisk walking pace for the slow speed ride at most, and a jogging pace when you're actually doing the turning. And we see people trying to either go too slow or too fast. So just to give you an idea of the speed. Right, so let's get back onto this video that we're going to be doing. On this video today, we're going to be looking particularly at normal control braking that we would do in the yard, and also we're going to be looking at emergency stops. Now I'll give proper introductions to them actually in the videos themselves. What we're going to do now though is we're going to actually talk about junctions, because as part of the this lesson that we're going to be doing today, we're actually going to be doing junctions. So the way it's going to work is when you're looking at this, you're going to see me performing normal control braking first, and I'll explain that, demonstrate it, and then show you the typical areas of weakness. Then I will also do emergency stops. Again, I'll give the introduction to it, we'll give a demonstration, and we'll talk about the typical areas of weakness. And then we're going to roll it straight into the junctions and actually go out onto the road. And we think that's going to have a lot more value if we actually show you it at proper junctions, so that it's a lot easier to be able to visualise. But before we could do that, I thought it would be a good idea just to give you some of the basics and some of the theory first before we roll into those videos. So hence the reason for being in the classroom. So what we've got here, excuse my drawings here, this is a side road here, or what you would call the minor road here. This road along the top here is referred to often as the major road or the main road. Now our car drivers will know this, but this is more for our provisional licence holders. Now the major road or the main road, that road always takes priority over the side road or the minor road. Now they are usually always controlled by either give way, as you see here with double dotted lines across, or a little triangular warning sign, or they could be controlled by a solid white line right across and the words STOP for stopped. And you would see a sign like this, looks like a hexagon, red with the letters white with stop written across it. So you're either going to see that as stop junction or a give way. Now our car drivers should instantly know the difference between the two, but again this is for the benefit of our provisional licence holders. A stop junction means that by law you are required to stop, you must stop. Now the reason for this is there could be limited vision. The give way junction, it means that if it's clear and it's safe on the main road, you don't need to actually stop. If you can see it's clear and it's safe to emerge, then you can pull out. So that's the difference between a give way and a stop. A give way means give way to traffic on the major road, but if by emerging you would not cause anyone to slow down, brake, or worse still change direction, then it's okay for vehicles exiting from the side road to pull out. The stop junction though means you must physically stop the bike, place your foot down, wait till it's safe and then go. So why stop junctions usually stop junctions? Well, because there's usually heavily restricted vision. For example, there might be buildings here or some sort of solid structure on either side, which is really restricting the vision. So as you come forward, you've got heavily restricted vision. So let's talk you through the OSM PSL routine now that we're going to teach you and when applying to junctions. So let's suppose now I wanted to go left here. There's a little routine that we're going to teach you, and you're going to use this in the yard to practice before you go out the road. It's called the OSM routine. Observation, signal, and the manoeuvre, M, is broken down to P, S and L. Position, speed and look. No, I'm aware this thing really picks up sound when I touch it, so better watch that. So observations. Well, the first thing is you look ahead and spot your junction and identify, is it a give-way junction, is it a stop junction, how far away is it, is there any parked cars, obstructions, pedestrians, etc. Next thing you do is you check your mirrors. So you're basically keep yourself abreast of what's happening behind you, the location, position and speed of any following traffic. So first thing we do is we check our mirrors. Now typically, if that's a 20-mile-an-hour speed limit, you're starting the routine about 40 metres back. If it's a 30-mile-an-hour speed limit, about 60 metres back. Just to give you an idea of distance. On the board here, it's hard to tell. So we check our mirrors first, both our mirrors. Then we give the appropriate signal. If we're going left, we signal left. If we're going right, we signal right. The next thing we do is we make a slight movement to the left. So if we were in the centre of our lane, it's just a slight movement over to the left, about a metre from the pavement here. So a slight movement. If that was position 1 on the left, 10 was the centre line, we normally run at 5. We're going to move over to about position 3 roughly. So it's not a significant move to the side. Notice though, if you were moving to turn right, it is a more significant change of direction, and you're moving basically closer to the white line, but without any part of yourself or the motorcycle going over the white line. So that's a more significant move. And not only that, there is a chance that because you're moving to the right, that somebody could be overtaking you. So what we have here is a little, if required, a right shoulder check here, just to make sure it's safe before you move over. Now the left hand one is if it's required, because it's not as significant. But if you were further over to the right for some reason, then you would check that left hand shoulder before you move over. So observation, signal left or right, appropriate shoulder check, if necessary, before the change in direction. Once you're in position, you're then reducing the speed down to an appropriate speed, either to stop at the junction, if it's a stop junction, or if it's a give-way junction but you can't see, or there's vehicles coming, or it's what we call a closed junction. That is a junction that as you get closer to it, your vision's still heavily restricted, you can't see, then you make the decision to stop. If it's what we call an open junction, though, where you've got clear open views to the left and to the right, and you can see that when you're slowing down it's safe to emerge, then you can pull out. Now to give you an idea, if it's an open junction, you can see it's clear, you're going to typically come out in second gear, about 10 miles per hour. If however it's a closed junction, you'd be reducing the speed down, and as you get closer and you still can't see, then you would make the decision to stop if you couldn't see or there was vehicles coming. And of course, if it's a stop junction, you have to make the decision to stop. So basically the speed that you come forward is going to be determined by the amount of vision that you have and what's happening on the major road. Now, if you're having to slow down, and typically below 10 miles per hour, and now getting down to the sort of the 5 and 6 mile per hour speeds that you can see, you're going to be going down to a jogging pace, then quite clearly you're going to be going down to first gear. You can't come out at such slow speeds. Now, if you can get out, then that's fine, out you go. Once you emerge out, you cancel your signals, you check that they've cancelled properly, and then you check both your mirrors. If you're going to the right, again, we've already checked our mirrors, we've signalled right. If check our right shoulder to make sure it's safe, and move over to the appropriate position, as close to the centre line as it's safe to do so. Reducing the speed down, using your brakes the way you've been trained to do, and again, looking both ways, and if it's clear and it's safe, out you go. If you have to stop though, and you've been sat there for any length of time, it's always a good idea, both with the right hand emerge and the left, to have a little quick check just over your appropriate shoulder for the direction you're moving in, just to make sure it's safe, a final check on the road, and then you pull out. And again, so once you pull out, cancel the signals, check those signals have cancelled properly, and by looking down your display, make sure you've cancelled them, and then check both your mirrors for the acceleration phase, because you're now about to accelerate. So there's the basic OSM PSL routine applied to a left-hand emerge and a right-hand emerge from the minor road to the major road, depending on whether you've got a give way or a stop, and the difference between an open and a closed junction. Now let's quickly just cover the right hand turn in and the left hand turn in, and then that'll be the end of this particular video. So let's now assume then the left hand turn in. So this is the one in red now. That was green for the merge. We're now going to look at red. Again, you'll extend your vision, identify the junction on the left hand side, usually identify it by maybe breaks in the buildings. There could be a gap between parked cars. You might see the road signs, the road markings indicating there's a junction on the left. You might even see, oh, it's all right, somebody's just come in the class as we're doing our filming. It's all right, Ruth, and you come. So a left-hand turn in here, and what we'll be doing here is we'll be checking our mirrors first of all, so we can see the position and speed of any following traffic. We would then signal left to let any traffic from behind know it's our intention to go left. And remember we said if you're in a 20 mile per hour zone, that's about 40 metres, a 30 mile per hour zone, about 60 metres, just to give traffic behind sufficient warning of your intention. Then you would position to the left as appropriate, generally speaking about a metre from the pavement, but if there was any roadside hazards or any reason why you couldn't position that far over, then you would hold a more central position or appropriate position until you've passed the hazard. You could be dealing with parked cars, for example, in which case, we never mentioned it in this one, I'm going to introduce it now, in which case you'd have to hold out a sufficient distance past the parked cars before you could return back to your position, typically at least a door's length from the car. So once you're in position, you're now braking, slowing down, and you're looking to make sure it's safe to turn into the junction. Anyone that's turning right should wait for you to turn in. Again, once you've slowed down, if necessary, a little quick check over your left-hand shoulder before you turn in. This is especially important if there's a cycle lane, for example, and you're in slow-moving traffic and there's a chance that maybe a cyclist, for example, has come up the inside of you. Now again, people ask me what sort of speed. Well again, if you can turn in here safely, you're usually looking about second gear between 10 and 12 mile per hour typically. But if it's a very tight, narrow turn in, or there's parked cars or obstructions, then you're going to have to come in slower, and you're now looking at first gear. Remember that pedestrians always take priority, so if a pedestrian was walking across the road, you would have to let the pedestrian cross first before you could turn in. And the same goes with emerging. The pedestrian takes priority. Once you get into the new road, cancel the signals, check they've cancelled, and check your mirrors. Now the right hand turn in, again you check both mirrors, same as before, signal that you're going right, check the right hand shoulder to make sure it's safe, and then move over towards the centre line. Reducing the speed down. Now this time remembering that any cars that are coming towards you, they have the priority, so you must let them pass first. Now if you could walk across safely before them, then there's time to turn in safely before them. But always remember that when you're starting off from rest, you do need a little bit more time to turn in, so always factor that in as well. Now just before you turn in, we do what's called the lifesaver loop. That's the final check over a right hand shoulder, which is done about minimum of 1 second and about earliest about 2 seconds before we turn. So 1 to 2 seconds before we turn, and in terms of bike lengths, at least 2 to 3 bike lengths before we turn. Sometimes on most roads, this pavement here, if we extend that pavement up, it's more or less in line with that, and that's called the lifesaver loop. And you're checking over your right hand shoulder just to make sure no one is overtaking you before you turn in. Now if you've had to stop for any reason because cars are coming towards you, once those cars pass and you're going to turn in, remember you still need that right mirror check and that right shoulder check to make sure it's safe before you turn in. Once you turn in, cancel the signals, check they've cancelled, and check your mirrors. And there you go, there's the basics of the left hand emerge, right hand emerge, left hand turn in, right hand turn in, and we're now going to go out the road and demonstrate that to you. Okay, thank you. Okay, well, welcome back again. We're now going to be looking at braking exercises. Again, this is John Macdonald from ProScot, the director of ProScot. These are a series of videos that we're making here to help you when you're coming on your CBT. As you know, we've already done, looked at, hopefully anyway, you've already seen element A, element B, and we're now showing you the skills that we're going to teach you in the yard. And hopefully you take the time to watch these videos because it's going to help you enormously. It means that our instructors can move through some of this a lot quicker. We don't have to preach the briefings and introductions to you so much. We might not even have to give demonstrations. We can maybe get more into the riding, and that's really what we want to do, spend more time doing the riding. So hopefully you find this beneficial, even for those that have ridden bikes before, hopefully finding some of this beneficial, and for those that have never ridden motorcycles before, making the transition from cars onto motorcycles, hopefully this is helping you quite a bit. Now, we're going to look at braking. Now, the first thing to say is that we've already introduced you to 2 brakes so far, haven't we? We've introduced you to this one, which is closing the throttle, and that's what we call the engine brake. That's your very first brake on a motorcycle. Okay, a lot of people refer to it as a non-mechanical brake, but it's the engine brake. That's the very first brake. You can't start braking on a motorcycle till you've removed the power first, so that's always the first brake. The second brake that we've introduced you to is of course the rear brake, and so far we've been telling you that the rear brake's used on its own, typically for slow speeds, anything below typically sort of jogging pace, which is getting on for about 10 mile per hour. You'll find that the rear brake is more than powerful enough for those sort of speeds. Combination of engine braking and rear brake gives a nice smooth controlled stop. However, As the speeds increase, you're going to find that that rear brake's not going to be enough. Now, the car drivers can relate to this. It's a bit like trying to slow down a car on gearbox and handbrake. It wouldn't be a very effective means of slowing down your car. Well, it's exactly the same with the motorcycle. Whilst the motorcycle is quite light compared to a car, and this is why it's so effective at slow speeds, typically up to 10 miles per hour, even a motorcycle, the momentum and that 125 kilograms in this case, and considerably more, the SV650 up there is 200 kilograms. Once that starts moving at higher speeds, you've got quite a lot of momentum, and you need to have a more efficient and more effective way of slowing the motorcycle down. This is where the front brake comes in. Now, the front brake is without a doubt the most powerful brake on the motorcycle. Now, under normal control braking like we've got today, what it says in the riding essential skills is that you should make more use of the front brake than the rear. But what do we kind of mean by that? That's quite hard to work that out. Well, let's put some percentages on this for you. If we imagine I've got 4 fingers here, yeah, and I put the 3 to the front, that's like 75% or 3/4 of the braking efforts done with the front, and about 25% or 1/4 done with the rear. Now, that's if it's a dry road. Now, if it's a wet road, it'd be more evenly distributed, so the braking effort front and rear would be quite balanced, right? Now, that's not lever movement, that's actual braking effort on both tyres. Now, that's a principle that we teach. Some people 75-25, some teach 2/3 front, 1/3 rear, 66-33. It doesn't really matter. We're arguing over a few percentage here. It's not really a big deal. The fact remains that under normal control braking, your front brake's doing more. Now, I prefer to use percentages because some people think the idea of more in the front, less on the rear might be 99% front, 1% rear. Well, that's more in the front than the rear, but that'd be a lot more in the front. Some people might think 51% is more in the front and 49% is less on the rear. So we're just giving you an idea here then, about 3/4 to 2/3 on the front and about 1/4 or 1/3 on the rear. And if it's wet road, it's more evenly distributed front and rear. Now, you should always apply the front brake momentarily before the rear on a motorcycle. The reason for this is that motorcycle just now has the weight evenly distributed front and rear, 50-50. As you begin to brake, the weight is transferred towards the front and moves towards the front, and the weight pushes onto the front tyre, and it effectively squashes the front tyre a little bit and increases the grip and friction on the front tyre, and thereby allowing you to brake more on the front. So basically, the more the weight shifts to the front, the more you're using the brakes, then the more the weight's just shifting towards the front, the more effectively you can use the front brake. So that weight transfer is effectively determined in a lot of ways, is determining your braking. Now, as a motorcycle racer and multiple Scottish champion, that is something, racing motorbikes, that's something that I really had to be aware of, was the tyre grip trade-off and how much grip I actually had, especially in the wet, racing in the wet and racing in the dry. So the figures I'm giving you there are pretty reasonable kind of figures that you would use on the road. Now, if you braked with the rear brake front first, then you've got quite a lot of weight on the bike at that point, so you can apply the back brake quite a lot. But the problem is then, as the weight transfers towards the front, the bike has a mental breakdown, because you're now taking the weight off the rear tyre, and it's more likely now to start skidding as the weight transfers towards the front. So that's why you should always apply the front brake first, because it commences the weight transfer, gets the bike into some sort of weight distribution that then allows you to determine the braking percentages based on the amount of weight transfer from the front and the rear. Now, this bike has what we call, to comply with Euro 4, has what we call linked braking system on it, and it means that if you push the back brake quite hard on this one, if you look in here, Lewis, you'll see there's a little lever moving in there, and it's actually, if you look up here now from above, Lewis, do you see that? That's actually putting the front brake on. So when I pull that, that's pushing the piston to operate the master cylinder. Now, if I push my back brake on, it brings it on. Now, what this does, the link braking, means that if I get too excited in the agony of a moment, I've got an accident situation in front of me, an emergency type situation, and I go for too much rear brake, then it starts to bring in a little bit of front brake, because it goes, wow, if you need that much brake, you must be needing a little bit of front brake as well. So it's what we call a linked braking system, and it starts to bring the front brake in. Now, I remember, Lewis, many years ago, probably no one may say this one, but I remember I'm in an emergency situation behind me when I had to stop for a bus, and I heard the crunchy metal at the back of me, and Lewis had gone too much on his rear brake, started to skid, and then went a bit too much on the front and locked up his front, and down he went. This bike should hopefully prevent that sort of stuff by helping with the brake distribution. Now, a lot of the bikes nowadays have ABS, the same as cars as well, so if you did get too excited with either the front or the rear, that the ABS system should prevent the bike from locking up and skidding. And still allow you to have a level of steering control on the bike as well. Now, an ABS system would be quite expensive in a 125, that's why they use this mechanical link braking system, but it's certainly a lot better, and it's actually quite hard for us now to lock up the rear wheel, whereas before on these 125s it was really easy to overpress the rear and cause it to lock and skid. Now you have to really be clumsy and heavy with that rear brake to make the rear want to lock. As soon as you start pushing it harder, it starts to bring the front in more, and it's, instead of putting more on the back, it starts to bring a bit more on the front. So the link braking system's actually very effective. But we're going to teach you as if you didn't have a link braking system and as if you didn't have ABS. Why? Well, for all we know, you might be buying an older motorcycle and it doesn't have a link braking system and it doesn't have ABS, and you need to be able to be what I call old school. You need to know how to distribute your brakes for a standard bike where you had the front brake and the rear brake were separated, they were not linked, and there was no ABS. So that's what we'll be teaching you. Alright? So the brakes must be used efficiently and effectively then to reduce the speed of the motorcycle down. Now, again, it's like the car. The quicker you need to slow down, or the shorter the distance you need, then the greater the braking pressure that you're going to apply. The same as the non-motorcycle riders. If you think back to the push bike, the more pressure that you apply, the quicker you want it to slow down. Now, a lot of people are terrified to squeeze the front brake, and I've had to write a few expert reports over the years for motorcycle accidents, and sadly quite a lot of accidents have occurred because of a misunderstanding about the front brake. A lot of people in emergency situations are frightened to apply these front brakes and use them properly because they're terrified they're going to go over the handlebars or lock and skid. Now, the first thing to say is, if I walk forward here, Lewis, and you film this, if I squeeze the front brake gently, you'll notice the weight transfers gently to the front. If I walk it fast though and snatch it, then yes, the weight transfers very quickly to the front, but you'll notice there's a suspension there, and that absorbs the energy of the transfer of the weight. It's not like a solid set of forks like you had on a push bike, where it would be solid and it would literally pivot about the front wheel and flip you right over the handlebars. That's not going to happen on a motorcycle. You're going to get the weight transferred towards the front. It's not going to want to throw you over the front, and you have to be pretty violent with that front brake to cause it to lock and skid. If you're squeezing it gently and progressively and smoothly, which incidentally we said this in B, you should use all your controls smoothly and progressively. If you're using all your controls smoothly and progressively, then you're not going to have those sort of problems. So remember, when you close the throttle, don't go snatching and grabbing the front brake. Use your 4 fingers, squeeze it gently and applying the pressure that you need, and then towards the end of braking, easing the pressure off. Now, at the point that you come to rest, there should be literally no pressure on the front brake. Still cover it though, just in case your foot slipped off the back brake or there was a failure. So still cover it, and then when you come to rest, you're bringing it to rest just with the rear brake. So here's the correct technique then. I want to do a normal controlled stop. First of all, I want to check my mirrors. I want to know what's happening behind me. I determine where I want to stop in good time. I close my throttle, I've already checked my mirrors. I apply the front brake with all 4 fingers gently, smoothly and progressively, building up the pressure progressively, knocking off the bulk of that speed, and about a second after I apply the front brake, I bring in a bit of rear brake now. So I'm now balancing with the percentages that I gave, either 75, 25, 66, 33, 50, 50, depending on the conditions. And as the bike's almost coming to rest now, I ease the pressure off the front. I don't need that much braking effort. And I now just bring it gently in now with the back brake, so as it comes to rest, it's just gently now with the rear brake, and it brings it to a nice controlled gentle stop. Imagine a pint of your favourite drink here, and it doesn't have to be alcohol, it could be juice of course. If it was filled this much from the top, it shouldn't spill as you stop. It should be a nice gentle controlled stop. So there you go, there's how we use the brakes for normal control stops. Now, why are we going to do this? Well, as you can imagine, coming up to stop at stop junctions, you need to be able to stop at a designated point. Stopping at a give way line, you need to be able to stop at a designated point. Coming up behind stationary traffic, you need to be able to stop a safe distance behind the car, typically at least a half a car length or 2 metres, or indeed any situation that requires you to stop in a controlled manner. You need to have full understanding of how to use those brakes and how to apply those pressures. So what we're going to do now is we're now going to give a demonstration of the braking exercise. And what I've done here, just so you understand this one, I'll put my visor down, is I've put 2 cones at the top and 2 cones over there, and what they're doing, if we just look at them, Lewis, what they're doing is they're simulating a give-way junction or a stop. And what I want to do is stop with the outer part of the front wheel in line with that. So let's see how that goes. And Lewis will film me. Yes, Lewis is going to go over there and film me. So here we go, going round, and I'm going to change up to second gear at the top, coming round, check my mirrors before I slow, close the shuttle, front brake, back brake, clutch in. I'm going down to first gear. I eased off the front brake so I was hardly anything on, and I brought the bike to a nice gentle controlled stop. Now what I should say here, before I move off again, is that we'll get you to go round in second gear. If you're going round in first gear and you close the shuttle, you have an awful lot of engine braking, and it's really easy to stop with just the engine braking and the back brake. We want you to come forward in second gear a little bit faster, so there's not as much engine braking, so you've actually got to justify the use of the front and the rear brake. However, I do stress, this is a braking exercise, not a gear changing exercise. We don't mind you to begin with stopping in second gear, but once you get comfortable with the brakes, we would then like to see you, as you pull the clutch in, doing what we call double tap on first, which is this. Double tap round this side, Lewis, and I'll show what I mean. As you pull the clutch in and you're in second gear, let's say it was like that, it's in second gear, and you're going to downshift, you do this. And you do a double tap on first gear, and that makes sure that the bike's into first gear. Now the advantage of this is, of course, as you're slowing down, let's say you're out on the road later and you're in fourth gear and you're braking, as you're slowing you want to change from fourth to third to second and to come to rest in first gear, so that you're downshifting through your gears, matching your engine speed to your road speed, so you stop in the appropriate gear. This means that if there's a clear safe gap to move off, you're already in the correct gear and you can go, and you don't have to flaff about at the junction trying to find first gear, or worse still, try and pull off on second or third gear and potentially stall as you're pulling out. So let's put all that together again, Lewis. Moving off here, up to second gear. I'll do the braking up the way. Close the shuttle, front brake, back brake, clutch in, stop, and then once I've stopped I'm going to click it into the first gear. Now going up the slope there, what I noticed that as I closed the shuttle, the bike wanted to slow down more for me for the uphill gradient, and this is something that we want you to be aware of, and that's another reason for having our yard like this, is to make you aware that when you're going downhill, then you need to apply more brake pressure for a given speed than what you would do going uphill, because the gravity is working for you uphill but not working for you downhill. So here we go then, or working against you when you go down the hill. So again, round we go, first to second on the straight bit there, close the shuttle, front brake, back brake, clutch in, double tap on first and stop with the left foot down, and we've got the bike stopped right on the line. Okay, so there you go. We're going to be doing that exercise with you then, getting you to be able to come up to a designated point and make sure that you can stop. Now that's going to be important for us, because when we take you out the road later on in element E, we need to know that if you have got a give way sign to stop at, a give way line, we need to know that you can stop at the line and you're not going to go over it with your motorcycle. Now, as you probably expect, if you're braking and you feel like you're going to stop short, then ease the pressure off and just allow the bike to run a little bit further. If you feel like you're going to run over the line, then apply a bit more pressure and bring the bike to stop before the line. But the idea is to apply it light to begin with, firm up the pressure, get rid of the bulk of the speed, and then be easing the pressure off towards the end, especially on the front, so you bring it to a nice controlled stop. And we will get you to do the same going up the slope at the yard here as well, so that you can be able to understand how gradient work, because when we take you out onto the on-road later, we've got some junctions that are on the level, some that are downhill, and there's some that are uphill. It's very important that you understand the effect of gradient and the effect that that's going to have on how you apply your brakes. Like we said, uphill the bike wants to naturally slow down with you with gravity, downhill the bike naturally wants to roll away, and you've got to apply more pressure to be able to take that into account. So there you go, that's the braking exercise, and we'll also get you to make sure that you can change from second down to first. But to begin with, we'll get you just to focus on the braking. We don't want you to get flaffed with the clutch and the gears. We want you to focus on the brakes. You'll have enough worrying about the front, the throttle, the front brake, the back brake and the clutch. You'll have enough worrying about them to begin with without us introducing the foot change. But once you can do the basic braking, then we'll introduce the gear change, because there's no point, as I say, going out on the road, stopping at the junction in fourth gear or third gear, and then trying to pull out and stall in, or as I say, flapping about at the junction trying to get your first gear. So there you go. There's the braking exercise. Now, as a continuation of that video, I forgot there to tell you some of the sort of problems that we see. It's probably easier for me just to explain them to begin with. We see people closing the throttle and only using the back brake, forgetting to use the front brake. Because they've been riding for most of the morning, or at least the first hour usually, with just the rear brake only, there's a tendency not to use the front brake. So we see people not using the front brake, or if they do, they sort of snatch it or put it on and off, bobbing the front brake on and off, and the front end's bouncing up and down. So not making proper and effective use of the front brake. We like to get you to walk with the bike first, just to get a feeling for that front brake before we get you to ride the bike and use it. We sometimes see the opposite, where people, especially if they're mountain bikers, are maybe just using the front brake all the time and not even using the rear brake at all. So sometimes it's a combination of either using too much front or too much rear, and just not using the brakes in the right percentages and in the right order. We sometimes see the rear brake going on before the front. Sometimes we see people coming forward, keeping the throttle open and forgetting to close it, and then just going straight to the brake and squeezing the brake with the throttle still open. You must close the throttle first, remove the power, and then apply the brake. We also see people coming to rest and forgetting to pull the clutch in, and of course the bike stalls as it stops. We also see the other one, of course, where people close the throttle and pull the clutch in straight away. Now that's called coasting. And other ones we'll see is using too much pressure, where they stop short. We can always cope with that one. The worst one, of course, is not using enough pressure and allow the bike to run past the line. So there's typically the areas of weakness that we see on the braking exercise. Okay, so we're now going to look at emergency stop now. Okay, so we're now going to be looking at the emergency stop. We've been looking at braking so far, normal control braking. So let's now explain how we do emergency stops. Well, the first thing is, let's explain what an emergency stop is. Now, our car drivers are already familiar with this. An emergency stop is where a situation has developed where you have to respond very quickly and bring your motorcycle under control in the shortest possible distance. Typically here, this could be different examples we could give. It could be a small child running out from between parked cars. It could be a car just reversing right out of a driveway, not seeing you and reversing right out in front of you. There's loads of things that could cause an emergency stop. Now, the best riders and the best drivers, through good concentration, through good observation, planning and awareness, generally are not taken by surprise. They've almost got a sixth sense for developing, for being able to identify potential danger, and they're able to respond to these sort of situations in good time. However, we're all human. We can have momentary lapses in concentrations, for starters, and secondly, situations can and do occur where no amount of anticipation and awareness could have identified them. The what if situation that just suddenly happens and we've got to respond to it. So the first thing to say is then that an emergency stop is going to be determined by a number of different factors that we must consider. One, the condition of the motorcycle. If you've got a bike with worn brakes, bald tyres, knackered suspension, this is going to have an effect on how quickly this bike can stop. The rider's skill. If you lack the skill, then again you're not going to be able to stop the bike as quickly as you perhaps possibly can under full control. So the rider's skill is an important part of this. Also the road surface that you're on. If you're on a good road surface that's grippy, got good integrity, then you're quite clearly going to be able to stop quicker on a shorter distance than you could on a slippery surface, such as a wet surface, a muddy surface, or wet cobbled stones, for example. So the surface itself is going to have a factor. The gradient will also have a factor. As you can imagine, braking downhill for a given speed, you'll take longer to stop than you would do on the same surface uphill at the same speed, because gravity is working against you when you brake downhill. So even the slope can have a factor, and the speed that you're travelling at. Roughly every time you double the speed, you quadruple your overall stopping distance. So speed is a huge factor. The faster you're going, the longer you're going to take to stop. And also the riders, not only their ability, but how alert and how sharp the rider is as well. So that comes down to two components then that are going to determine how long it takes you to stop a motorcycle. The first thing is your thinking time or your reaction time. That's a factor. Now they reckon that for most people it's about 0.7 of a second. The Formula 1 drivers are a lot quicker than that, of course, but the average is 0.7. So if you're doing 40 mile per hour, they reckon you'll cover 40 feet before you even get the brakes on. Or if you're doing 30 mile per hour, 30 feet or about 10 metres before you'd even close the throttle and start to get the brakes on. That's what we call the reaction time. The braking time is how long it takes you to stop when you apply the brakes. When you Add the two together, that's called the overall stopping distance. Alright, now as I say, every time you quadruple the speed, you double the speed, you quadruple the overall stopping distances. So, how do we bring the bike then to a quick controlled stop? Well, the first thing is through correct assessment of the road, the traffic conditions, the weather conditions, driving an appropriate speed for the road, the traffic conditions, and through being sharp and alert and having good skills, hopefully we can avoid emergency situations, and if we do, we can respond to them correctly. So let's now look at how we do an emergency stop. Well, the first thing is when an emergency stop situation occurs, the first thing is we must remove the power. That's the very first thing we do. We close the shuttle. Now, this is one of the few occasions where we tend not to check our mirrors first. If you do check your mirrors, you must not let that affect your thinking time and your ability to respond. You might look in your mirrors, see a 40-foot articulated lorry close behind you and think, oh, do I really want to brake this quick for the small child? Yes, you need to. So my problem with looking in the mirrors isn't so much the time it can take looking in the mirrors. It might be that you see something that you don't like, and that split second of not applying the brake could be the difference between life and death for a small child in front of you. So the driver behind should be paying attention. They should be able to see past your motorcycle. You don't obstruct a big area, and they should be just as aware of the hazard as you are, and they should be able to see it as well. And if you think about it, if they're behind you, they've got longer to stop and longer to react. So your important thing here is to get the bike stopped quickly, not checking your mirrors. But if you do check the mirrors, don't let it affect the rate at which you apply, react, and the stopping distance. So the first thing then is to close the throttle fully. You must remove the power. The next thing is, and I'm going to sit on the motorcycle to demonstrate this, you must brace your arms, because if you don't and you've got the arms bent, when you apply the brakes it's very easy for the arms to bend and for you to move forward. So you must brace the arms, lock the arms out, firm up the arms. So close the throttle. Now, you still don't snatch the front brake. It's still progressively increased in pressure, and the front brake is still applied momentarily before the rear, and it's still roughly the same sort of pressure distribution. The difference is, if it's on a good dry surface, you'll apply more pressure. Now, I know we say similar pressures, but I'm going to be absolutely honest with you, as an ex-multiple Scottish champion and multiple racer here, and that is that the front brake is the most efficient brake on the motorcycle. So you want to try and make the maximum use of that front brake, but without causing it to lock or to skid. The same is true for the rear. So the amount of weight transfer will effectively determine just how much pressure and how much braking effort is done by the front and the rear, but it's still going to be considerably more towards the front than the rear. Now, if it was on a wet surface, then again it's still going to be slightly more in the front. A lot of schools teach more evenly braking. It is still slightly more on the front, maybe about 60% front, 40% rear, but it is still more on the front. And depending on how grippy it is, you might get away with a little bit more than that in the front. What you're trying to do is apply the maximum pressure to the front and to the rear to stop the bike in the shortest distance, but without causing the bike to lock or skid. So taking into account the integrity of the surface and how much grip's available really is a very important factor in determining those percentages. But one thing's for sure, if you lock or skid either wheel, you must release the pressure momentarily, allow the wheels to rotate again, and then reapply, but with slightly less pressure than before. Now, a locked rear wheel doesn't cause nearly as much problem as a locked front wheel. A locked rear wheel will just leave a black line and skid behind you. If it's on a bad camber, it could skid to the side, of course, but if it's on the level, it'll just skid behind. A front wheel, if you lock that, it'll skid for about 2 meters at most, and then it starts to go down. So if you did feel the front lock, you must release and reapply. Now, thankfully, the linked braking systems and ABS are now making this much, much safer. Alright, so close the throttle, apply the maximum brake pressure you could get on the front without causing it to lock or skid or cause any loss of control. About a second after that, once the weight's transferred towards the front, that'll determine effectively how much you can apply on the rear and bring in the rear. Now, we still tend to teach about 75 to 80% with the front and about 20% to 25% on the rear, especially with these linked braking systems now. It works very well. And as you've got the arms firmed out, and then just pull the clutch in at the very end just before you've stopped. And that clutch being left out leaves the maximum engine brake in effect. That leaves the maximum engine brake in. If you forget to pull the clutch and install the bike, it's not a major problem, but the only thing is you need to now start the bike and try and get out of there, whereas if you've kept the bike running, it means you can get moved away again. Now, once you've stopped, your very first job is to check your mirrors, what's happening behind you. If there is someone coming behind and you're going to pull into the side and, you know, sort your heartbeat out, then signal left, check it's safe, check your mirrors, right blind spot, right mirror, check the left blind spot, and then pull into the side and give a signal if it's going to benefit anyone. If there's nobody to benefit, you don't need to signal. If you're going to move off, continue your journey, again, check your left blind spot, check your mirrors ahead as well, check your mirrors and your right blind spot. Remember, you didn't check your mirrors before you did the emergency stop, but you should be fully aware of what's happening behind you, and then if necessary, give the right signal before moving off if anyone's going to benefit from it. If there's nobody going to benefit from the signal, you don't need to give it. So there's the emergency stop. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to demonstrate it now very quickly for you. Emergency stop. And I'll put my visor down for this one. Okay, so coming up here, building up a bit of speed. Close the throttle, close, front brake, back brake, clutch in, and stop. I'm going to do another one for you, do my checks before I move off here, do another one. Change gear to second, building up a bit of speed. Build up the speed, close throttle, front brake, back brake, clutch in. And there we go, stopped quite quickly. Now let's just show some of the typical kind of weaknesses that we can see. So the first one I'm going to show you, demonstrate to you, is not closing the throttle properly. So let me show you this one now. Okay, now if we come here, Lewis, I'll show what I actually did there. I had the throttle open and then I just pulled the front brake. I didn't close the throttle first. Here's another common one. This is especially people with small hands that tend to do this one. They'll have the throttle open, they reach over and then they twist the throttle back as they're pulling on the front brake and they roll the throttle under the thumb. So people with little hands reach over, pull it and then roll the throttle. So something wrong with the throttle, in other words, not closing the throttle fully. You should always make sure close, lift, squeeze. Close, lift, squeeze. Close, lift, squeeze. Don't do that. And don't do this. Close, lift, squeeze. Alright, all fingers. So that's the first one then. A problem with the throttle and the front brake. Let's show another one. Now on this one I'm not going to use the front brake at all. And I'm just going to show that we can do it. Watch this, come up, close. It looked like quite a good emergency stop, but as you can see my hand wasn't even on the front brake there. And the link braking system didn't want to skid the motorcycle. Now on the old YBRs that would have skidded there because I had quite a lot of back brake on, but because as you can see it brings on a bit of front, it still stopped quite quick, so you could cheat a bit. So our instructors have to watch for that one. Here's one now where I'm just going to use the front brake and not use the back brake. So here we come up. Again, not using the back, squeeze in. And you'll notice it stopped still quickly, but I didn't use the back brake at all. My foot wasn't near the back brake. Now the next one I'm going to come up and I'm just going to forget to pull the clutch in. So I'm going to forget to pull the clutch in. Let's watch what happens. Coming up. And it just stalls the motorcycle. Now in this last one I'm going to show you me applying the brake, release the brake, apply the brake, release the brake, and watch the front of the motorcycle and watch what happens when I do that. So watch what happens here. I come up, brake, on, and you see the bike's bobbing up and down there. Alright, so we see lots of different things done on the emergency stop. As I say, people not closing the throttle properly, rolling the throttle underneath their thumb, trying to grab the front brake without closing the throttle, too much pressure on the front brake, not enough pressure on the front brake, applying the pressure on and off. The same with the back brake, not enough pressure, too much pressure, not using it at all, forgetting to pull the clutch in, or sometimes pulling the clutch in first, coasting before they close the throttle and pull the brake on, and doing things like that. So combinations thereof, sometimes not firming out the arms, so that when they brake they sort of get flung forward because I've not firmed out the arms. Alright, but my instructors here are very highly skilled and very highly trained to be able to help you to optimise your riding skills, and that's really what makes ProScot, I think, a wee bit special, is that we really put a lot of work and a lot of effort in. You'll probably be able to tell from my videos here that we want to help our riders as much as we can. We know other people are going to be watching these videos that want to ride motorbikes, and we're great believers in really helping to share our knowledge and help riders to be the best that they can. So one thing's for sure, if you come to ProScot, you know that you're going to really be taught to high standard. We don't believe in just scraping you through a CBT and giving you a bit of paper and then screwing extra lessons out of you for the DAS, where we really should have sorted that on the CBT. We believe in teaching really good skills, high level skills at the CBT, and anyone that's come to ProScot will know that. It's all about a high standard and teaching you to a really good standard and getting your riding off to the best possible standard. The CBT really does lay the foundation for the future you're riding. Now in the next video we're going to look at the junctions. Now normally we would set the cones up for this one, but to make it more effective for you, because really we're trying to get you to understand how to do the OSM PSL routine, and the best place to do that really is out on a junction. So I think what we'll do is we'll probably do that one. The next video is actually to do it at proper junctions, so you can actually see priority, give way line, etc., open close junctions, and understand it a lot better. There's only so much we can do in the yard, and I'll be quite honest, the yard junction exercise isn't as effective as I think it can be. It would certainly be far more effective out in the road where we do it on element E. So that's what we'll do on the next video on the skill set for the junctions. But that's it for the braking exercise and emergency stops. Okay, so we've brought you out here just to basically show a giveaway junction and a stop junction. Bear in mind this is particularly for our novice riders. Our car drivers should know this stuff anyway. So Lewis, if you extend the camera down there, first thing is to say that we've got a giveaway junction up ahead of us. And you'll see there the giveaway sign on the left hand side on the post. You'll see the triangular warning sign and the two giveaway lines. Now if we come forward a little bit, Lewis, if you look to the right, if you scan to the right, Lewis, you'll notice we really can't see very well to the right. And if you scan to the left, we'll try and not get run down by the car here. If we scan to the left, we really can't see for the cars here either. Now again, if we scan to the right, our vision's starting to open up now. And if we scan to the left, still not got great vision to the left. Now it's not the best junction. The reason I've picked this one is just simply there's not very many junctions in Kirkcaldy that actually have a giveaway sign, like we've got the giveaway, and have the triangular warning sign with it, and have the white paint as well for us. Now as we get forward to this point here, you can see now this is where the junction really opens up. So if Lewis is looking to the right, you can see all the way along to the silver van that's coming, and to the left, Lewis, if you were scanning to the left now, and just try and hold the camera fixed in one place there, yeah. So this is where the junction is really opening out. So if I do this now and got the camera back from Lewis, and if I look to the right now, we've got vision to the right, and we've got vision to the left. So it's said to have opened up at this point. But if I go back a little bit now, just to here, you can see now that my vision to the right is restricted and my vision to the left would be restricted. So that's what we call a closed junction on approach, and it opens out, and it becomes an open junction as you get closer. We'll look at the stop junction next. Well, this time we've brought you to a stop junction this time, and you can see the clear differences this time. We have the letters S-T-O-P across the road. Admittedly they're a little bit worn, but they are there. We've got the stop sign in red, octagon sign. It's a different shape, no longer is it a triangular warning sign. And we have the solid white band right across the road, Lewis. Yeah, we can see there. Also, if you look to the right, if Lewis scans to the right, you'll see there's a solid wall. Now that's why this is obviously made a stop junction here, because that solid wall is real restriction view. In fact, I'll take a hold of it because it's easier for me probably to do this bit now. If I look to the right, I can't make any decisions, and yet at the moment I'm only about maybe 2 car lengths from that junction. I look to the left, I've also got heavily restricted vision. Now this is the sort of position I'd be in if I was going left, emerging left. And if I look back to the right, I still can't see enough to be able to make a decision to emerge here. Again, looking to left, still can't see. So you can see why this is a stop junction. Even if I move forward now, I'm only at the moment probably about 2 metres from the white line at the moment. And if I look to the right, still can't see enough to be able to make a decision to emerge. And to left, even to left now, my vision is now opening up to left, okay, but the vision is still heavily restricted to the right. Only when I get to this position now, can I now start to see far enough along the road now to make a decision to go. But you'll see here, I'm literally at the stop line. So that's why this one's been made a stop junction then. I'll give it back to Lewis. So that's why, there you go, Lewis. So that's why that's been made a stop junction then, because it's heavily restricted. So just to recap then, an open junction is a junction from further back where you start to get views to the right and to the left. Now some can be closed from further back, but as you get closer to them, they become open junctions and they start to open up. Some like this remain closed literally right up to the point at which you've got to stop, right at the give way or the stop junction. Now, because this is a major road here and it's a busy road, they've decided not to control it simply by a give way. They've decided to control it by a stop, effectively forcing motorists to stop right at the line. Okay, so what we're going to do now is we're now going to go and jump on the motorbike, and we're now going to demonstrate the OSM PSL routine being used for emerging left and right and turning in left and right. Okay, we're now out on the road, and what we're going to do is we're actually going to film me. I'm actually going to be on the lead bike in this first set of the videos. I'm going to be on the lead motorcycle. Lewis, my son, is behind me. He's going to film me, and I'm going to tell you actually what I'm doing on the bike in front. So I'll actually tell you what I'm doing, and we'll be doing the left-hand emerge from the T junction at the end here. We'll be doing a right-hand emerge. We'll be doing a left-hand turn in, major road to minor road, and then we'll do a right-hand turn in, major road to minor road, and we'll be demonstrating the OSM PSL routine, and I'll actually be explaining to you and telling you what I'm doing as I'm actually doing it. Then the plan is to swap the video equipment round about, and I'll put the camera on me, and I'll actually film myself so you get a rider's point of view as well. Okay, so let's go on the motorcycle and do the left-hand emerge first of all. Okay, so I have a junction at the end of the road here, and I'm going to be going left. So I check my right mirror, my left mirror, I signal left. I've not got a significant move to left, so I don't really need to check the left shoulder. Once I'm in position, I'm slowing down using both my brakes, following the natural curvature of the pavement, looking right, looking left, looking right, looking left, and I can see it's clear to come out, so out I come. I cancel my signals, I check they've cancelled, and then I check my mirrors as I accelerate along the road. So that's the left-hand emerge done. We'll be showing the right-hand emerge next. Okay, we're going to be doing the right-hand emerge this time. So there's my junction at the end, so I check both my mirrors, I signal right, checking my right shoulder just to make sure it's safe, moving over towards the centre line in correct position, reducing the speed, looking to the right, looking to the left. My vision's a bit restricted here, it's opening up now, and there's a lorry coming, so I'm making the decision to stop. Still looking both ways, I can see it's now clear. We check my right shoulder, it's clear, final check, out we go. Check my right mirror, right shoulder for moving out for the parked car, check the signals are cancelled, and then check my mirrors as I begin to build up speed. Okay, so this time we're going to be doing the left-hand turn in from the major road to the minor road. So I've spotted my junction, checking both my mirrors, signalling left. I've not got a significant change of direction here, just a slight movement to left, so no need to check the left shoulder. Once in position, slowing down, looking ahead, looking into the junction, checking my left mirror, no need to do a left shoulder check, following the natural curvature of the pavement in the centre, cancel signals, check they've cancelled, check both my mirrors, and then building up to an appropriate speed for the new road. Okay, so we're going to be doing the right hand turn in this time from major road to minor road. So I check both my mirrors, I've spotted the junction up ahead, I signal right, I check my right mirror and my right shoulder to make sure it's safe, and I'm moving over closer towards the centre line, but not too close to the oncoming white car. Looking ahead, looking into the junction, check my mirror, doing a lifesaver look, see that it's clear, and then in I go, straighten up, cancel the signals, make sure they've cancelled, and then check both my mirrors as I now accelerate into the new road. Okay, so this time again we're going to run through the junctions for the left hand emerge, the right hand emerge from the minor road to the major road, and we're also going to run through the left hand turn in and the right hand turn in from the major road to the minor road. The difference this time is that the camera is actually on my helmet and I'm giving running commentary of what I'm doing, and I'm actually giving the rider's point of view. Alright, so here we go. First one we're going to do here is the left hand emerge. So checking my left blind spot, my left mirror, looking ahead, my right mirror, my right blind spot, see that it's safe, off we go. Now we're going to be going left at the end of this road. I'm observing the black car on the right waiting to come out the car park, checking right mirror, left mirror, signalling left, taking up the position about a metre from the pavement, Reducing my speed down, looking right and left, a bit restricted vision through the fence, but it's opening up now. I can see both ways, see that it's clear, out I come. Cancel the signals, check they've cancelled, and checking both mirrors. So there you go, that's probably the more simple one of the two, the left-hand emerge, applying the OSM PSL routine. And as long as we look both ways, saw that there was nobody coming, you'll see we got out there quite easily. Now we're going to be doing the right-hand emerge this time, the right-hand emerge, so I'm checking both my mirrors. There's a car parked on my right, but I'm close enough to the junction that I can signal right. Check my right shoulder, moving over towards the centre line, reducing the speed down, looking both ways, seeing that it's clear, don't need to stop, out I come. Cancel the signals, check they've cancelled, checking both my mirrors and accelerating up to speed. This time we're doing the left-hand turn in from the major road to the minor road. So again, spotted my junction, both my mirrors checked, left-hand signal applied. Not a significant change in direction, so moving over slightly to left here, about a metre from the pavement, reducing the speed down, looking into the junction, waiting to make sure that car's not going to turn in front, rechecking my left mirror, round the corner go, watching for the silver vehicle on my left here, cancelled my signal, checked they've cancelled, and checked my mirrors. Now, although I said check my signal there, I didn't actually, I'll be honest with you, I didn't actually glance down at it because I was more interested in that silver vehicle to make sure they weren't going to pull out. But once I passed the silver vehicle, then I checked my mirrors. Now the next one we're going to look at now is the right hand turn from the major road to the minor road. So I've spotted my junction, I'm checking my left mirror, my right mirror, I'm signalling right, checking my right mirror and my right shoulder to make sure it's safe. Moving over to where the centre line would be, the faint line we see, looking ahead, nobody coming, looking in, nobody coming out, check my mirror, lifesaver, and then turning into the junction. Cancel the signals, check they've cancelled, and then checking both my mirrors as I accelerate back up to speed.
Thank you for watching Element C. That now concludes all of the skills that we teach in Element C. I'd also like to point out that when I was carrying out my lifesaver looks, it looked like I wasn't really turning the head enough. That was more to do with the position of the camera on my helmet and also the restricted field of vision. But I can assure you that when you're turning your helmet and rolling your eyes around, you'll actually get a better view into the blind spot than we were getting there with the camera. So that concludes, as I say, Element C. In the next video we will look at Element D. Thank you for watching.